What does the name Monza mean to you? To a fan of historic Chevrolet automobiles, it means a somewhat interesting but mostly mediocre car of the mid-70s. To a world traveler, Monza is another beautiful city in the northern part of Italy. Palaces, cathedrals, and, a racetrack. To a film buff, the Monza racetrack in the movie Grand Prix is where Jean-Pierre Sarti lost his life in a fiery crash. To the automobile race fan, Monza means fast, dangerous, and Ferrari. More specifically, home of the Ferrari Tifosi, the most famous race fans in the world. It is where Phil Hill in 1961 clinched his only world championship, the first American to do so. Tragically, his friend and teammate, Wolfgang von Trips, died in an accident with Jim Clark on the second lap of the race. Von Trips was desperate for a third-place finish, as it would have given him the championship over Hill. 14 spectators were also killed when the Ferrari slid into the crowd. Because Monza has been one of the fastest tracks in the history of Formula One, it has also been the catalyst in the combined deaths of over 52 drivers and motorcycle riders and, shockingly, 35 spectators since its debut in 1922. Over the years, the track has evolved through 10 different variations, including the addition of the high-speed banked oval built in 1955. When raced strictly in oval form, it hosted the race of two worlds, combining Indy cars and Formula One cars. The American drivers had a huge advantage with their purpose-built for Indy cars and won both years the event was held. Even more interesting for us, the Formula One Championship in 1955 introduced to the racing world the combined oval and road course and ran that version a total of 4 times, the last year being 1961, the year of the Von Trips tragedy. Because the world's sports cars were considered marginally safer, they continued to race the combined oval and road course until 1969. That last 1,000 kilometers of Monza was won by Brian Redman and Joe Siffert in a Porsche 908. In the 1970 championship season, Jochen Rindt made the unfortunate decision to remove the rear wing on his Lotus, trying to achieve a faster lap time. His horrific crash at the Parabolica curve ended his life, and he became the only driver to win a posthumous world championship. In 1978, Ronnie Peterson, driving for Lotus, became the last F1 driver to lose his life at Monza. Surprisingly, Peterson only received minor burns in this terrifying crash on lap 1, mainly because drivers Hunt, Regazzoni, and DePaglier pulled him free in time. Unfortunately, Peterson died the next day from a fat embolism related to his severely injured legs. Today, Monza continues to be one of the fastest and most beloved circuits in the championship. Now, what does Monza mean for us? To our global network of dedicated iRacers, it means the wait is over.
In the next few weeks, iRacing will be releasing their version of this iconic track. It will be a perfect blend of old and new, and will allow drivers to experience Monza at several different points of time or history. The iRacing version of the track is laser scanned and will replicate all of Monza down to the millimeter, including the banked oval that hasn't seen a car in 50 years. There will be multiple different layouts to choose from when racing at Monza, with the GP course of today and the club track, a shorter version of the track used by slower cars. There will also be the banked oval and even the combined course of yesteryear that utilizes the banked oval and the GP course. The GP layout is the same layout that is seen in many racing titles and is the same version that is currently being run by Formula One each year. This version of the track measures in at 3.6 miles long and features 11 turns, including 3 different chicanes and then 4 additional corners, the Turismos, Grande, and Parabolica. It is one of the fastest tracks on the F1 circuit, and the teams will run their lowest downforce setups possible to utilize the blazing speeds of Monza. The club version is a very small version of Monza that uses the front stretch and makes a sharp right-hand turn that cuts off many of the top speed parts of the circuit. It is a much shorter variation that after a couple of turns places you right back onto the backstretch just after the last chicane. It ends up only being a handful of turns and coming in at under 1.5 miles in length. You will also be able to run the old school oval all on its own. This is a heavily banked oval with variable banking that can reach up to 30 degrees. It is very narrow, very bumpy, and very fast. You can see how deadly this particular oval would have been running at 200 miles per hour in cars with very little safety built into them. The oval layout measures in at a hair over 2.5 miles long. And then finally will be the combined course that brings back a very nostalgic era of Monza. This was a truly unique track that would make for some spectacular racing then and now. This version of the track takes a good majority of the GP course and joins it together with a high-speed oval. This will challenge cars on an entirely new level, as there has always been a huge difference between a road car and an oval car. This hybrid version of the track will be a bit of something new along with something old for a version of the track that has never been seen in a real car. The modern GP course has changed many times over the years. Modern grandstands and the pit lane have all changed. Meanwhile, the oval has sat dormant for many years while these changes occurred. When iRacing rejoined the two tracks, it brought the past and the present together to recreate the 6.2 mile version of Monza. With the creation of Monza did come certain challenges for iRacing. I talked with Greg Hill of iRacing and asked about those challenges and how iRacing overcame them. He talked about the spot that joins the two tracks together. That area had been replaced with a very large sand trap for the modern version of the track. iRacing used a combination of the scanned data, endless amounts of photos taken, and measurements also taken by their team on their reference trip to Monza. With that, they were able to join the tracks in a way that didn't take much away from each design. Greg also talked about the condition of the oval portion of the track, and there is a fair amount of vegetation that would not be suitable for racing. They had to remove those flaws, but then they were left with a driving surface that was very drivable and would give drivers an experience similar to what it felt like back in the late 60s. In addition to bringing the oval back to life and joining the tracks back together, iRacing also had to conquer the task of creating 3 different lanes going down the front stretch. There would need to be a divider between the main course, the oval, and the pit lane, all going down the front stretch of Monza. In the end, they accomplished these goals and gave us what we all wanted, the ability to run Monza pretty close to the way it was run during the few years of the combined course. When it comes down to driving Monza, it holds up to its name and reputation. This is one fast track. When driving the modern Formula 1 version of the track, you will need a very low downforce setup. You will find yourself at full throttle most of the time during a lap. This track is very smooth and will test your faith in high-speed cornering and mechanical grip. At those times that you're not at full throttle, it will be full on the brakes trying to slow the car down for any of the 3 chicanes intended to slow down those blazing speeds. At Monza, even the corners are fast, each one leading into another straight and begging you to carry more speed out of the corners. Turn 3, Grande, will be taken at full throttle in many downforce cars. Making any mistake at all is likely to end up being critical. The Lesmos are a pair of right-handers, and despite needing to brake a bit before going in, they are still very fast corners, and again, the second Lesmo being so critical for carrying speed as it leads to another straightaway that will test that overall speedier car. The final corner at Monza is parabolic, and it is a 180 degrees turn that is far from slow. You enter this corner from full speed and will still have to brake quite a bit. But this long turn begs you to push it again as it leads onto the straightaway that passes by the start-finish line. When focusing our attention to the oval, this is an oval unlike any that you have ever driven before. The oval is part of the reputation for speed at Monza, and its 30 degrees of banking allows for some very dangerous speeds. The banking at Monza is also very bumpy. that will make your car float at times and slam its rear end into the ground at others. And something else that makes the Monza Oval unique is just how narrow it is. And with the bumps and its speeds, it will be very tough in a crowd, that's for sure. The amount of grip here is never in question, and it seems that one can also use the apron and carry very fast speeds. But either line you take, you're still going to have to deal with the very tight exit of turn 4 where the guardrail almost cuts you off. I've rolled several cars here, and it is also the hardest place to find grip. And in case you hadn't noticed something about our footage here, but we're actually running an oval in the clockwise direction, which is opposite of what most people are accustomed to. But you're actually turning right instead of left, and it will require a setup opposite of what we normally run on our ovals. The track is fun as an oval alone, but it's even better when you join them both together. This makes for a track that will really test your abilities both as a driver and perhaps even more as a crew chief, developing setups that can handle a GP course and an oval all in one lap. Monza will be available on iRacing the next few weeks, and everyone out there is going to be able to drive this great combination of old and new within the sim.